Well, Cigars Daily Nation, we're in 2024 and it's time to take a look inside another Thermoelectric Humidor from what is quickly becoming like America's favorite brand of humidors, which is Needone. I see more of these popping up in people's home lounges and bedrooms and living rooms and places where they keep their cigars than just about any other brand out there. Certainly it's not the only one, but it has become a trusted name. And as we continue to ramp up our cigar collections with the latest, greatest, newest blends with amazing flavor, we need larger places to keep them. And that's why this time Needone has sent me their 33-liter humidor, and today I want to take you through a full review of this bad boy that holds more cigars than a lot of the more I don't know if you can really call them desktop style humidors. It wouldn't fit on most desks, especially if you have that IKEA crap that you spend a whole afternoon putting together and you're like, dear God, where is piece number A that goes with screw number JJ? Doesn't matter. This one right here is almost a piece of furniture in itself, and it's time to dive inside this thing and see exactly what it has to offer you, along with some of the drawbacks along the way. So as I roll up my sleeves here, the first thing I'm doing is what I want you to do when you get a new Thermoelectric humidor. Really, when you get most things that get delivered to your house from a truck somewhere, take a good look at the box on the outside. Take pictures of any holes in the box, because if anything is wrong with the unit internally, you're going to want to have photographic evidence that that was the case beforehand. This one looks pretty good. There's a couple of scruffs and scratches. Maybe a dog chewed on the corner of the back of this one. I don't know, but I'm confident the unit inside is in good shape. So time to unbox. Well. This is actually pretty neat. There's some cool features and upgrades from previous Needone units that I've seen that at the very least in the 33-liter unit, you're going to find really helpful. One of the biggest upgrades being that the user manual very much appears to have been written or at least reviewed by somebody who speaks English as a first language. That's not entirely common for these user manuals. Included in this is a ton of helpful information, including how to set the thing up and store it. They do want you to keep a few inches around the sides and from the back. Don't put it next to another appliance that's going to be heating up as something creates extra heat and is going to heat up your cigars and defeat the purpose of having a damn thing that cools. Also in this instruction manual is everything you need to know about how to season the unit. So the instruction manual by itself is a huge upgrade from other ones I've seen. Big fan of that. Now, as far as the unit itself goes, there is a ton of good stuff going on here. So I'm going to walk straight through this whole thing and give you the pros and cons together as we go. And the first thing I want to start with is the display on the front here. Up front, the advantage to the electronics on this thing and all the control panel here is its simplicity. There's not a ton going on. A drawback here, and it's not something that Needone advertises this as having, is no humidity controls, no humidity reading on the front, although they do have a digital hygrometer built in here, but that's going to be separate consideration. The main feature of most thermoelectric humidors is that they are thermoelectric and control the temperature of the space inside where you're going to keep your cigars. So you can control it if you keep your house at 80 degrees in the summer because it's too hot and the electric bill is too damn high and you're already paying too much for everything anyway. You can at least have one space in your house that is controlled to keep your cigars well. You keep your food cold, right? Why wouldn't you keep your cigars at about 70 degrees, which is sort of the recommended area? Now here, they've done something I haven't seen on other units. There's this gear button here that you depress. You hold it down to set the temperature. By itself, if I try to turn these up and down, it's not going to change the humidity, which means your kid's not going to walk in the room and fiddle with the thing and turn it down to 55 or turn it up to 84 or something obscene like that. So very simple. You hold down the gear. Once it beeps, you can change it, and after 20 seconds, it'll just go back to locking. Also, it's got this combination button for Celsius and Fahrenheit and for the internal light on this. So tap it once to turn the light on, tap it once to turn it off, hold it down to change between Fahrenheit and Celsius if you're into that kind of thing. All around, a very simple control panel on the front. And again, Needone and all of these thermoelectric humidors really do come with a pretty sleek design. They look good, so you can put them in just about any room. But I like with this one, this is one of the greatest things I've seen, is the shelves on this will come out if the door is open just 90 degrees like this. That doesn't seem like a huge upgrade or a massive feature, but in the past I've had this issue where if you open the door this 90 degrees like this, the shelves won't come out. They'll get stuck on the rubber seal of the door. With this one, if you're not very careful about how you pull them out, they can get stuck, but there's enough give in those shelves back and forth that you can open the door 90 degrees and take the thing out. This matters if you're going to end up putting this somewhere where it's like close to a wall, or another piece of furniture where you can't open the door all the way. Like suddenly you've got a beautiful place for your humidor, but you can't use it because you can never open it enough to get the shelves to slide out. One thing I really like about this unit is the 33 liter is actually wide enough that you can fit a cigar tray inside of it. And so, let's see. That one goes in like that, fits pretty well. It'll take up a little bit of space. There's some space for cigars on the edge if you want to put some box press blends out there, but it does give you the ability to have more of a drawer style than a flat shelf and contain your cigars a little bit better. For me, these days with my cigar collection, organization is one of the biggest things. I like looking at and caring for my cigars almost as much as I like smoking them. So this is really important to me. A little nitpicky thing that's sort of a drawback with just the top two shelves. But then you get into this bottom drawer, and this is awesome because the bottom drawer is thick. I mean, it's got this very deep drawer on it that will hold a lot of cigars with walls all the way around the thing. Made totally out of Spanish cedar wood, and built into the front of this drawer is a digital hygrometer. Thank you, Lord. I love it. It's so great. It's great to have a digital readout of what your humidity is in your humidor. I have yet to do a follow-up video of my cabinet humidor at home, but I bought this massive cabinet humidor that does not have a built-in hygrometer of any kind. I had to add a digital hygrometer, which for a massive cabinet humidor seems like a major drawback. For a unit like this to come with the built-in digital readout of your humidity, this is like getting a car with a gas gauge. It should have it pretty much no matter what, but surprisingly, a lot of them don't. The fact that this one has it is a major plus. Aside from the trays and the drawer inside, the only other thing that it comes with is this humidification dish. This is to hold distilled or reverse osmosis water if you should so desire. This is what you're going to put it in, or you can just put a damp sponge, a wet sponge inside this container to humidify the inside. Typically, I don't like to use these. I get rid of them and I use Boveda packs. They do a much better job of controlling humidity two ways, and this really does take up a lot of space. If you put this inside the tray at the bottom or on one of the shelves, this is going to take up the space of probably 6 to 9 cigars that you could be storing in there. So you're really giving up a lot to have a dish, especially when there's Boveda packs that are thin and work a lot better. They're much easier. You just replace them when they get dried up. So, and of course the seasoning instructions. This is a huge deal. You want to make sure that you season this thing to be 5% higher than where you intend to keep it long term. So if 70% is your magic number for humidity, you're going to get the internal humidity here to 75% before you put the cigars in. Somehow magically it adjusts. It'll adjust back down to the humidity that you want. But really important point. Do not season the shelves of this thing with distilled water. Don't get a sponge, put it in some distilled water, feel like you're a super fancy aficionado and wipe down the shelves and get them all moist. Because what's going to happen is your internal humidity is going to go so high, you won't be able to get it back down. And then this will not be a home for your cigars for a very long time. It's like basically putting off a bomb inside your humidor. It'll be a while before you can repopulate the damn thing. So definitely read the instruction manual on how it says to season it. Follow their steps. They're written well in English, so it shouldn't be terribly difficult to do. And of course, the biggest concern with any humidor is how well does it seal? This is something I've seen to be very consistent for thermoelectric humidors of just about every brand, and that's the seal on the front. This is really the only place where you get the seal is around the door. There is a very nice, very thick rubber seal, just like a refrigerator door. It is a refrigerator door. So this thick rubber seal gives you a perfect seal. You can even hear it close like a fridge. It gives you that little fridge closing noise that's so satisfying. You just know your cigars are in a perfect habitat for them to stay in great shape as you're looking at them or aging them or whatever you're doing, growing your collection. And then of course with this one, there is a dust trap on the back. You know, the motor runs inside this thing and dust is just in the air pretty much no matter where you go. And so this bad boy right here is meant to be vacuumed or washed if it gets covered in dust. That's going to give you better efficiency for the unit and help the thing to last and work for much longer. So a big deal here. Keep an eye on this, especially if you're installing this somewhere like underneath the countertop or something. You want to have access to pull it out once every, in the book, I think they recommend once every 3 months. But I mean, you could probably get away with 4 months, 6 months. It's really about how dusty your house is. If it's like my house, you've got a lot of dogs and you might want to do it every 3 months. Now, if you are in the wonderful position of having recently come into possession of one of these, or you're looking at getting one in the near future, a couple of things you should know in the book here. There are some cigar storage guidance tips inside this book, and I wanted to take you through a few of them. For the most part, when it comes to caring for your cigar collection, you should do what makes sense to you. What humidity level you set, that should be the humidity that you love. If you like 65%, go to town. You want 72%, go to town. There are only a handful of things that to me are like set in stone rules that you should follow and be really cognizant of to keep your cigars in great shape. This is something I spent a lot of time thinking about because it's literally what I do for a living. The first thing that it says in here is that the ideal temperature for cigars is between 64 and 74 degrees Fahrenheit. And technically, yeah, I suppose. Personally, when my humidor hits 73, 74 degrees Fahrenheit, I feel like that's a little bit warm. That's when I'm getting concerned. I'm getting nervous. I'm like touching my chest. I get anxious about cigar beetles, mold, things like that. Sudden spikes to temperature, sudden spikes to humidity can do that, but also really high temperatures, really high humidity can do the same thing. So I recommend keeping your cigars really between 65 degrees and 75 degrees. And hell, in aging rooms in cigar factories, they keep the temperatures even lower than that. Sometimes they go down to like 55%. Very cold in those rooms. In this book, it also says they recommend that you keep your cigars in their boxes for as long as possible. And they say that, keep unpackaged cigars separately in a cooler to avoid unwanted flavor mixing. And I'm pointing this out because this is a common question in the cigar community. Like, if I put my cigars next to each other on a shelf in a humidor like this, are the flavors going to mix together? If they're not flavored and infused cigars, you shouldn't worry a tremendous amount about that, unless maybe you're aging a cigar for a very long period of time and there's no cellophane on it and it's two very different cigars, then maybe. But for the most part, I wouldn't worry about it and wouldn't recommend putting a lot of boxes in here. Boxes just take up a lot of space. And while this can hold some boxes, I would be much more inclined to get trays like this where I can organize and stack single cigars because ultimately this humidor will hold a lot more if you don't use boxes. Boxes they take up a ton of space. That being said, this does say not to absolutely pack this thing filled with cigars. You do want airflow to happen in here. And one great pro of this unit is that being thermoelectric, it will circulate the air. The fan inside that works through the thermoelectric motor is going to circulate the air inside of this thing and circulate humidity throughout it as well. And the size of the unit shouldn't cause like humidity to be really high in the top shelf and really low in the bottom shelf. Should be pretty damn even. Like that would be nice, as long as you have access to some airflow. So they say this thing can hold 200 cigars. You might top out at 150, depending on the size of cigars you're smoking, maybe 200 Robustos. But if you smoke these redonkulous 7x70 rings and you got a ton of those in there, well, it's going to be a whole lot less. And one more thing about seasoning this is length of time to season. If you read the instruction manual, it'll say that it will take about 3 days to season it to get it sort of 5% above where you want it to be. I find that that's pretty subjective. There's just some dialing in you got to do with these things. And it really depends on what is the ambient relative humidity where you live. If you live somewhere very, very humid, you might find yourself putting packs in here to bring humidity down over time. If you live somewhere very, very dry, it might take a little bit longer than 3 days to humidify the thing. If it's taking a matter of weeks, then you're probably going to want to be reaching out to Needone to say, hey, what's going on? But certainly it's a pretty fair expectation that around 3 days is the length of time it's going to take to season this bad boy. And of course, the big question, what's one of these gonna set you back? They're listed for like $260 or something like that. But I found prices online right now, a few days after New Year, that ranged anywhere from about $160 up to $230, which is pretty damn impressive considering that your other options are basically a faux wood humidor. Those are under $100 and they work semi-reliably. This is even still more affordable than a real wooden desktop humidor, which would cost probably almost twice as much, maybe 3 times as much for one of this size. I mean, for what it does for your cigar collection versus the dollars you're going to spend on one of these, I think that thermoelectric humidors like this are like the best solution for humidor care, hands down, that there is. And I'm a really big fan of this 33 liter, being that it's a little bit wider than some of the smaller ones that I've reviewed. And again, it fits the cigar trays in there and fits a whole lot more cigars too. So lots of benefits with this one. It's a very simple unit, and for you, that may be a pro or a con. It certainly doesn't require a lot of maintenance or upkeep, but of course, what really matters with these things is what you guys think of them. So if you've used thermoelectric humidors, drop a comment. Let us know what you think of them. What has your experience been like? Was the seasoning easy? Was it hard? Do you use a wooden humidor? Do you wish you had one of these things? I would love to hear more from you guys on that. And of course, I want to encourage you to check this video out on the community on Cigars Daily Plus, where you can get a whole lot more out of our content. And I look forward to talking with you guys in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. This is Tim signing off for Cigars Daily, and I will see you in the comments.